Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of the All About Digital Marketing podcast, because today we are recording episode 150, and I am joined today by special guest, and let's see if I can use this. Gareth Alvarez, and...
Hello!
He's done it again. That's exactly what you did in episode 1.
Yeah, got you.
And Anna Simmons, who were both here with me recording the very first ever episode, which we recorded back in July 2019, so over 2 and a bit years ago now. And we kind of got excited, and I messaged both of them and said, let's get on the show and have a chat about the good old days.
Let's get the band back together again.
Yay!
We like to take ourselves very seriously here. Really quickly, do you guys remember the very first ever episode?
It was a very interesting time because we were focused far more on the technical bits of how to run the podcast than what to actually put in the podcast.
Yeah, well, we didn't have anything prepared, did we? Just let's just talk about what we're doing, and we're on a podcast. We're talking live. Yeah. This is great. Yeah.
And here we are, 150 episodes later, doing exactly the same thing for this special.
On a podcast. We're talking live. Yeah.
Gareth has more hair.
But Anna, you are right. Gareth does have more hair.
Gareth does have more hair.
A lot more hair. Well done, you.
Yeah, I tried. I really tried. It took a lot of time and effort and concentration and laziness.
Well, so talking about that very first episode when we did start, and Gareth, you are completely right, because we literally launched a podcast within 30 days because we wanted to figure out how to launch a podcast within 30 days. And back then we had very little idea of what was involved. So Anna, you spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the technical side looked like for launching a podcast.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, if you remember any of it? Because it was 2 and a bit years ago.
So I think the thing that was the most interesting part that I'd never learned about before was, sorry, I just got some background noise there, just working from home. So it was the fact that podcasting has its own hosting. I thought that was the most interesting bit. So we had to find a hosting platform. All of us had to have mics. There wasn't any video planned at the time. We knew we wanted to maybe have it, but we focused on getting the basics first. So we had to find a hosting platform, and then there was this whole approval process for every single one of the platforms that we had to get approved on Apple. We had to get approved on Google, on Spotify, all of them separately. And then we had to try to get everything connected, and we had to try to find a way to make it manageable in terms of the transcripts and getting the episode show notes together. So it was a whole new way of making content, but yeah, it all came together quite nicely. I did enjoy that behind the scenes bit, learning about it.
It's funny because you mentioned like the whole microphones and one thing and other. Like the very, very first ever episode, I think we were all using Gareth's, your trusted white Apple headphones as we all joined for the very first call.
It was really difficult because one set of headphones between the three of us was bloody difficult.
It was tough times back then. It was tough times.
But these are the originals. These are the same ones. You know, they never go out of style.
And they never fail to work, as I sit here with an AirPod, which will probably stop now. We're like halfway through this recording.
Yeah, same.
So really quickly for everyone listening at home, Gareth, what have you been up to? Because you've been doing some really cool, fun stuff recently with a lot of filming and video work.
I have, yeah. So in the recent past, I took over a community interest company as a side project as well. North Devon Moving Image. You can check us out on ndmi.org.uk. Yeah, and so yeah, I've been doing a lot of filmmaking, a lot of editing, and doing some pretty cool stuff. Only yesterday, I was just before we started recording, I was telling Chris about my filming escapades yesterday, hanging out of the back of a mate's Land Rover. Holding a camera on a DJI Ronin gimbal about 20 centimeters off the road as we sped at 30 miles an hour with a motorbike about half a meter away from me as I was filming it. So yeah, all good fun. So yeah, I've taken content to content creation towards the audio visual a bit more. Still doing a lot of writing, but yeah, really enjoying the filmmaking now as well. And yeah, it's just a bit more creative and a bit more crazy, I suppose.
I'm happy that you've got that domain name, because I mean, I personally might have gone for something like North Devon Moving Images dot something else, because it would have been easier to kind of tell people.
It rolls off the tongue,
doesn't it just? But we will add ndmi.org.uk to the show notes as well.
Please do.
And Anna, we have been talking recently about all sorts of things for the future, but you have been working in a very different sector and not hanging out the back of Land Rovers, I hope. What have you been up to?
No, that would have been a very strange day if I would have been hanging out the back of a Land Rover. So I've been working in-house in a regulated group of companies. So the main company is a law firm, which was really interesting because we'd worked in Social Link with a lot of finance companies. So it was really nice to work with another regulated type of company. It was very similar, very transferable, but very eye-opening as well. The sort of things that lawyers have to go through to work in their industry. You know, it's amazing the hoops that they have to go through, and marketing has to go through those hoops as well. So last year was very interesting with the, interesting is the nicest word, isn't it?
That's one way of saying it, yeah.
It's one way of saying it. So I had the pleasure of working with this team throughout a very hectic time, and working with a team who had never worked remotely before was also really eye-opening. We've worked as a distributed collective team here at Social Link, and it's easy to take that for granted when you work with people who are used to it, but it was eye-opening to see how people who have never approached it before, what they thought of it, what they wanted to do, what they thought of the tools. And you know, I think it's a lot can be learned both ways with that.
I mean, to be fair, I'm just going to jump in quickly, because we were working remotely before it was cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, 100%.
We made it what it is.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of people that we had to tell about Zoom, and now I have people try to tell me about Zoom, and I'm like, oh, that's cute.
Perfect.
But yeah, so I've been working with them. It's not just been the law firm. There's been an accountancy firm as well, and a loans company, and then the marketing leg as well. So it's been a bit like working in an agency with multiple clients, because it's been quite a busy group. But yeah, it's been interesting.
So let's ask you both then, from each of your different opinions, and we'll come back to you, Gareth, for a bit. And I must say, I did mention this before the recording, I'm going to say it now. You are looking very Teen Wolf-esque, if I'm honest with you.
Well, you know, compliment taken. Thank you.
I'm glad you took it that way. What are some of the...
I feel like you should have like a little volleyball
basketball
with a handprint on it.
Oh, with a face print.
Well, that's Castaway. Very different film. Very different film.
No, but I mean, no, it's just like the whole like the concept of having lived wild.
He's been working remotely, not living wild, Anna.
You know.
Well, he's in Devon. I don't know what it's like down there.
Look,
Do you think,
I've got
I'm surprised
walls,
you have internet.
Okay. I'm not in the middle of the forest.
Is there a roof though? Is there a roof?
Ooh, look at that. Hey.
Confirm for anyone listening to this, there is actually a roof.
And a lamp or a light, I guess, a light fixture.
Electricity and everything.
Yeah, electricity. It's arrived in Devon.
This has degenerated so quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought this would be a great idea for a 150th episode.
Well,
I think we're doing better than we did in the first episode, to be fair.
Here's the thing, though. I mean, you know, didn't we do this for the 100th as well, or the 50th? I mean, if we do this every 50 episodes, it's bound to get really loose by the time we hit like 250 or something, right?
Did we do this for episode
next
50?
time?
I don't know, but it seems like a milestone that we might have celebrated, or maybe we didn't do it for 50. Maybe we did it after the first year. I can't remember. It was a long time ago.
You might actually be right. I'm going to have a look now and double check.
Yeah. So yeah, side note for the show notes to put a link if we do find anything.
I don't remember. Anyway, so more importantly, Gareth,
Yeah.
what are some of the things that you're looking forward to over the coming, let's say, 12 months, and especially to do with marketing? Because this is actually what the show that we all decided to
Oh,
start all those years
right.
ago. So
Yeah.
we should really talk a little bit about that rather than about the fact that electricity has reached Devon. To anyone from Devon listening, apologies. We didn't mean that in any kind of bad way or something.
Sure.
Insert policy, privacy policy, and complaints policy down below.
Yeah.
And Gareth, what are you looking forward to over the next year and a half or year or so?
Well, what I've discovered actually over the last couple of years is, through the sort of new work from home Zoom culture that has exploded because of the way things are, is that how before we were always talking about how video was always going to be the type of content that was going to become dominate and become prevalent, and it's panned out that way. And what I'm finding now with all the filmmaking that I'm doing is that everybody is after video, and they're not just happy now with going live to phones or just recording off laptops and stuff like that. Now they want really professional looking, well edited films, and looking at 30-second to 60-second to 90-second type clips that they can have on their website as sort of interactive backgrounds, or that they can have on their Facebook pages again as their header, or that they can just share clips of across social media and so on. So I really think that what I'm looking forward to is obviously doing more of that video content, and just seeing it develop, like starting to shoot film for that is specifically for Instagram Reels and so on. So it's not just you're not now just a filmmaker, but you have to actually really think about the platform and whereabouts on that platform your films are going to crop up, and the styles and so on for that. So that's in terms of marketing. I think that if we thought video was going to be big before, now we've really got to think about how we tailor the video to the platform, and I think that's going to be something really interesting.
I think what is really good about video, and especially if you plan out and if you work with somebody like yourself, or even if you want to try and plan it out yourself, but if you create a piece of content about your business that's maybe not very specific to a time of year or very specific about one particular service, but more all encompassing, more kind of higher level, that becomes a really good piece of evergreen content.
Yeah.
Right. That can be used again and again. And it can be, like you said, repurposed for different platforms, but it can be used on your website. It can be used as part of ads. It can be used as all sorts of things. And I think that's a really powerful tool that people often forget about, which is a shame.
Yeah, it's about thinking long term and thinking bigger than just a single piece of content. Is like, well, how can we maximize the return on this one piece of work that we're doing, so that yes, it's going to cost X amount, and it's going to take so much time or whatever to put together, but then what you're going to get as a result of the time and the effort, the thinking, the planning that you put into that is going to return tenfold on that investment of time and money.
So Anna, you're stuffed. You can't say video now, but what are you looking forward to over the next 12 months?
Over the next 12 months, I do think that the most exciting thing from a marketing point of view is just understanding how much people's behavior will have changed because of the pandemic. So as Gareth says, video is going to be so much more important, but I also think turning social media into something that is actually more social is going to be the focus. And so you can see things like video is good to a point, but you can see, for example, so Twitter with, what was it called, their fleets, they got rid of those because it wasn't the right way to be social on their platform. And so I think it'll be interesting to see, because I find that there are so many more people who aren't traditional online kind of lurking types that are now finding themselves online because of remote working and because of this entire culture where so many people are just using things like Slack or other platforms for their work environment. Even if somebody's working in the office, they might have a hybrid team. And so you have people who don't have the same sort of culture, as I would refer to it as, they don't use emojis in the same way, they don't use social media in the same way. And that is having an influence on the types of content that you can see. And that is going to have a big influence on what does well, because you're no longer speaking to people online that have been online. You're speaking to a lot of people who have never really used it for that before. And I've seen, especially on LinkedIn, that's really starting to change. So I think that's exciting. It's, you're getting a lot of people that are sort of new to this whole internet thing. And, for us, we've been on it for so long, it's difficult to see it with the same eyes as they do. But I'm excited to see how that's going to change things, because I think particularly for people that are more extroverted, that typically would have done all of their socializing offline, they're going to change the way social media works. And I think that'll be a good thing.
It's funny though, because like you said, we've been doing this for so long, and we think back, we've been saying be social on social media for, I don't know, years now. But you can really see, and even companies that we're talking to now as well, they really want to engage in a different way. It's not good enough to just post your news articles, or it's not good enough to, just be pushing up new blogs or whatever. They really want to find a way to get that conversation started, whether it's actually getting the resources in place to start the conversations, or jumping into other people's conversations, or being part of bigger conversations. And I think that does make it really interesting, because like you said, there's new people. Social media gets a bit of a bad rep, I'd say, especially on the news or anything like that. But there is a lot of nice little corners of it. I'm not going to say the whole lot is great, because it's not, but there are some really nice little corners of it where there's some really cool things happening, and where brands really do interact with their community. And I think that's what makes it a little bit more interesting.
Well, speaking of then, if we start with Gareth first, just to keep things interesting.
I love the fact that Anna's just taken over the podcast now. I'm just going to sit back. She's taken over the host.
Speaking of, so...
I'm going to think of a question now.
Are there... Yeah, you better. Are there any brands that you think did really well in the last 18 months online? Like, who inspires you with their video?
I'm so happy we didn't prepare for this. This makes it so much more interesting. Well, I got a bit of time to think of an answer.
No, don't do this to me. Who inspires me with their video? That is an interesting question, actually.
Thankfully, we can edit out this really long bit and just make it look like Gareth answered super snappily and came up with something.
Yeah, please do, because I'm stumped. I'm just trying to think of...
Yeah, you're supposed to say it's so hard to choose. Let me think.
Well, it is so hard to choose. Let me think.
Have I got the countdown music here? We need to, if we're going to do like a short fire round, like I can do a... Bong.
I don't know. I mean, in terms of brands inspiring me with a video, do you know what? I'll be honest with you. It's usually the same brands that nail video every time. So Nike did an amazing ad recently. Well, I say recently, it must have been 6 months ago, and I remember it because it was like a split screen, and yeah, I can't remember what it was for, but I just remember it being really cool. And it's split screen, and it was one person doing one type of sort of sport, I guess, and then it sort of, as they moved across into split screen, it went into a different sport, and it was just so smooth, so brilliant. And then they did another one recently about sort of women in sports. So Nike always absolutely kill it with their videos, and not just with sort of the storytelling that goes into it and that kind of narrative that really draws you in and engages you. You go, whoa, what's that? But actually, just the cinematography of it and the edit. It is just so seamless and so cinematic and perfect, you know. I mean, you can go onto YouTube or whatever and have a look at some of the most recent Nike ads on there, and you'll see what I mean. It is just so beautiful and so well shot and so well put together that it's very difficult to fault them, really.
Good effort, Gareth. Good effort.
Nailed it.
Well said.
I think, to be fair, what what amazed me the most over the last 18 months was how much people were relying on Zoom or Skype to create content. And not just us with our clients, I mean Sky News or BBC News or whatever else. This massive shift happened very, very quickly where this became the norm, right? You're sat in your little home office and you're now talking to Sky News. And that used to be a one-off kind of occasional thing on the news.
Yeah,
now
when your
it's
kid sort of walks in and interrupts you, and then your wife kind of scrambles around and pulls the kid out.
that's happened quite a few times.
And you become a meme.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. That's basically it. But there was a lot of I found quite interesting actually is a lot of people, so I didn't realize obviously at the time that Jeremy Clarkson was filming his farming series for Amazon Prime. And during the kind of pandemic, occasionally he'd post something and he'd do like little short videos and stuff of him kind of bumbling around this farm. And I was like, I don't get what he's doing kind of thing. Afterwards, it all kind of pieced together and I clicked it really well. But I thought there was a lot of cases like that where people were doing very interesting content. And I think the TV shows that had to adapt really quickly. So James Corden for the late night show or Saturday Night Live. I don't remember which one he's taken over in the US. I don't watch it very often, but I've caught a couple of the shorter social media clips that they did and stuff like that during the pandemic. And what was really interesting about it was it literally changed the entire format of the show. It's James Corden in front of a MacBook Pro. Like, it's a very different concept, right? It's a very different show than having some guest on the sofa next to you and being able to talk and laugh and stuff. But these people managed to turn that around really quickly. And obviously I know they've got big budgets and they film it really well and they pull it all together really nicely. But I found it really interesting to see that you could actually basically create a talk show if you wanted to without ever having to actually own a studio or a massive
Called a
amount of
podcast, mate.
It's called a podcast. Fair. I'll take that. All right, Gareth, you've got a chance to ask one question to Anna. That way you can put her back on the spot.
Well, I'll think of something.
Oh, here we go. All right, that could take a while.
Well, I guess, because, Anna does social and all that. So I was thinking, in terms of social media, who have been the big winners then recently, do you reckon? And what's by virtue of what aspect of their platform have they come out, winning? And not just, I guess, in a marketing sense, but just overall, where have the gains been in social media?
Well, I think it's so easy to go back to the familiar favorites, but I think the people that were already doing really well on social media have continued to do really well because, like Chris was saying, we've already talked about this a lot for years, that in order to be successful on social media, you have to actually be social, and it's so easy for people to make it overcomplicated. And so it's those brands like Innocent is always a good one to go to. One of the agencies that I love following on Twitter, RGA, and there's KFC and Burger King, the really cheeky people. A lot of food related ones.
I'm seeing a trend here.
See a trend here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's the ones that actually step outside of the fact that they're a business and embrace the fact that they're people and their customers and clients are people. And so I've seen, as said on LinkedIn, you can see so much more of this. And I think things like working from home and working on Zoom has made people really admit to each other that, yeah, I'm a professional. Yeah, I'm skilled at these things. And yeah, I have a cat and I have a kid and, all these different normal human things that we try to cover up with our corporate offices and corporate clothing. And so you've been able to see that on social media as well. The people have been so much more real about it, and it's so much more engaging with, I do agree that things like polished video is now in more demand. And I think the reason why that's in more demand is because of the fact there's so many more people being casual about it. Whereas, 3 years ago, it seemed really cool and authentic to do some quick off the cuff live video. I was looking at Gary V, who we all like here. So he, again, is always a really good example of when it comes to seeing what's working, because he posts so much content. And so it used to be that every time he posted something a little bit less polished, less planned, it would do really, really well. And now it's a bit more of a balance, and more of this polished stuff is getting more traction. And I think that's because it just stands out. But yeah, I think so. I think that's been interesting. LinkedIn has definitely become less of a stuffy breakfast club and more of a yeah. So it's just been so I think that's what's been doing really well. So the things that were already doing well, those brands, they're still doing quite well. They're quite strong. They already had those communities, and those communities just went online even more. And they were the ones that people already knew of them. But it has been, I've been personally, I guess, far more inspired by the brands that embraced all of this from scratch. And it was really inspiring to see places like, again, to keep it food related, there's so many restaurants here in Herefordshire embraced remote delivery and things like that. And we have so just to do a little shout out to the Beefy Boys. They do some wonderful burgers here, and they did it so well throughout the last couple of years that they're actually opening a new location, and they embrace things like DIY burger kits. So they completely looked at their product from scratch and looked at how can we use social media to promote this. And so they've been doing all of their selling via Instagram and their website and Facebook, because they didn't have that footfall. And so that's been quite inspiring. But again, it's been about keeping it social.
I'm going to look at it from a different point of view, but in terms of like platforms. So who remembers House Party being a thing in the last 18 months?
Yeah.
Like literally, that's like a blast from the past now, right?
It is a blast from the past. You could play little games with each other on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I've seen a couple of posts recently of people going like, sorry, I tried. I've deleted the Clubhouse app. And that's
because that's opened up now, hasn't it?
Well,
yeah.
Wasn't it
I think their
special
valuation is ridiculous. They've got like 13 million downloads or whatever it is in total. It's been crazy, and it grew so fast. But again, it grew so fast in a kind of everyone trapped at home, nothing else to do, another little toy to play with on my phone, or more time to be able to create content via that and another platform. And I think it's been really interesting to see, because as you watch, the big three, as it were, your Facebook, Instagram included, Twitter, LinkedIn have dominated still throughout. TikTok would be the one, probably a newer boy to the or newer kid to the block that's flown and blown up.
Yeah, it hit the most. What was it? It hit the most downloads in 2020. So most downloaded social media
I keep trying.
last year was TikTok.
I keep trying TikTok. I struggle.
Look at him pulling out his hair.
It's your demographic. You're out of that demographic, mate. Sorry.
What do you mean your demographic? We are in the same demographic.
It's not for you, mate.
No
it's not
comment.
like the cool kids.
Because he's wearing a surfer shirt. That's I've now been demoted in terms of demographics.
Yeah.
Well, he's got a middle part. Well, so do I. To be fair, I shouldn't have brought attention to that.
Yeah, you be careful what you say about hair here.
Guys, listen, thank you so much. But before we wrap up, Gareth, where can people find you online?
At the moment, you can find me at Alvo_Muses on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to hit me up, or just find me on LinkedIn, it's just Gareth Alvarez. I'm there. Or you can check out the work I've been doing with ndmi.org.uk, and we're also on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and everything, so just look us up and drop us a message if you want.
Awesome. And Anna?
I'm on Twitter as @AnnaDoesSocial. Nice and simple, easy to remember, so I'd love it if you connected with me there or on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Guys, thank you so much for coming back for 150 episodes. That's crazy. We should have done this with a drink in hand, I've just realised.
I know, yeah, it is Friday.
Well, I've got a beer in the fridge. I can get it now if you want.
Guys, thank you so much.